Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again for another buzzword breakdown. So today we have Elizabeth Perry here with us, and she is from AdTaxi. She's a great strategist that we have here, and she's going to take us through this week's topic of how to baseline your year using GA. So I'm really excited for this topic. I know Google Analytics is always a hot topic on everybody's mind, so very excited to have Elizabeth here with us today. A couple housekeeping tips. Again, if you have any questions, please type them in the questions box or the chat box. Likely we won't be able to get to all questions during the presentation today, but we will definitely follow up with an email response to each and every one of you with an answer to your questions. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth. And one more quick plug, our next buzzword breakdown is going to be in 2 weeks on the 21st, and we're going to go through an omni-channel approach, or omni-channel is our buzzword, and look at how to create a comprehensive marketing strategy across different digital platforms. So stay tuned for that one, and without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Elizabeth.
Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth Perry. I'm a digital account strategist here at AdTaxi. I've been here for 2 years, but in the digital marketing world for the past 6 to almost 7 years. And I am originally from Atlanta. I have 2 dogs, and I am very addicted to candy, anything with caramel. So I'm really excited to share some information with you on how to create some benchmarks of performance and use that data to leverage better campaigns moving forward. And just so you understand my background with Google Analytics, I've run various campaigns for companies. So I've been in Google Analytics about every single day for the past 6 years. So hopefully I can share some tidbits that help you with your marketing. So the agenda today is to go over everything that you need to do to baseline performance using Google Analytics so that you can create annual or quarterly campaigns that are going to be the most successful for your business. So first we'll go over goals. Which goals can you track? How do you track them? What do they mean? Next, we'll do benchmarking performance. So looking at the metrics available in a Google Analytics account, how do we figure out where people are interacting with your website to use that data? And if we're going to create a campaign that is going to be successful, we need to know what the baseline metrics were. And last, using that information, how do we identify an audience so that we can run successful campaigns? The last bit will be helpful tools that will be available for you after the webinar. Perfect, so goals for success. Woo! Tracking goals, these are the 4 different types that are available in Google Analytics. Destination, duration, page visits, and events. Most of you are probably familiar with destination goals. So these are based on URL structure. When someone fills out information and it goes from maybe a form fill, like here on the AdTaxi website, contact us /, and when you submit information, when you click that button, the URL changes to thank you, contact us. This is considered a destination URL. This can be used for specific page views if you want. It doesn't have to be a process, but you can be more sophisticated and do a pattern. So if someone starts to check out, adds to cart, maybe starts shipping, if you have goals set up by the process, you can also see where people are dropping out. The next one is session duration. And so this is a little bit of a trickier one. It makes sense to track this since users who stay on your site longer are inherently more valuable. However, you have this information elsewhere in the account that we'll look at. But if you're going to be using a session duration breakdown, one thing to remember is the way that Google calculates this is a little bit different than maybe you would calculate it using a timepiece. So for example, if a user comes onto your website, your homepage at 10 a.m., that's the entry time. Then they go to a product page at 10:01, and then a third product page at 10:03. And let's say they're looking at all of the reviews they're getting information about the care of a product or maybe the value of a service that you're offering, and they stay until 10:15 and then they leave, you and I would consider that 15 minutes. They were on your website from 10 a.m. until 10:15. But Google Analytics views that as 3 minutes because the entry of the third page was at 10:03. And they can't qualify the value of time spent on that last page. So that's why this time frame is only given 3 minutes in Google Analytics. So be wary when you set up this goal that it could vary. What you want to be looking at is average time on site and page visits in the overall sessions, and we'll dig into that later.
So this is more of a guide for me, not a hard and fast goal. I shouldn't freak out if all of a sudden I see this fluctuate a little bit, right?
Yeah, don't freak out. Definitely don't freak out, but it's not going to be as concrete of a goal as, say, a page URL or an event goal. And part of that is because it's up to Google's interpretation. Whereas if you're tracking revenue or a form fill submission, that's a tangible item that you have more data points on.
Yeah. I care more about money, right?
Yeah, hopefully you're looking more at the cost per acquiring a lead or return on ad spend or investment before just how long is someone looking at a page.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure your web developer would be very excited if this goal is high in the Google Analytics.
Yes.
The next type of goal is page visits. So it can be site views or page views. The type of customers that are going to be using this are really going to be either auto or event-based advertisers. So when your audience may not be engaging with the website because it's an in-person interaction, these can show you the value or intent. And so you can look at what pages people are spending a lot of time on at the behavior level. So this is a little bit confusing, but under behavior, under site content, it's content drill down. You can also set up segments to help view some of this data by going up here and adding a segment, and you can create either an audience or page behavior segmentation. But really what we just wanted to show you is that, for example, in an auto industry, if you're looking at new versus used versus CPO inventory, so certified pre-owned cars, you may want to break these out. And then the last one, the trickiest one, is events. So event goals are when that URL doesn't change, but a user takes valuable action on your website that you want to track. With Google Analytics, you're able to track an unlimited amount of events, but you can only report and track 10 conversion goals per grouping. So it's valuable to use events for things like button clicks, content views, or downloads, or page scrolls. I would recommend not doing page scrolls because that will encompass time on site. Button clicks is really where this is going to be important. So for example, if you have, and you can see in here, the events can be segmented by category. So if you wanted to look at different types of events like downloads versus a button click or clicking for directions, these can be categorized so that you can look at them individually and look at the performance of those in your marketing campaigns. This is an example of what it looks like when you fill out a lead form. That URL would have been /contact, and once you click the submit button, it pops up and says thank you, but there's no URL definition saying that it was a successful submission. That's where the button click comes into play. What's really important about event goal tracking is that it does require some coding. So make sure that if you do an audit of your website and you see, okay, if a user clicks this, it doesn't give me a thank you page, but I definitely want to track that. Talk to your web developer, talk to your marketing team. This is something that's going to require you putting a piece of code on the website so that Google Analytics knows when a user clicks that button and it was successful. And then the important part of setting up these goals, and the reason why we're talking about goals first, is we want to understand what you want to achieve before we look at benchmarking data. We need to know if you want a return on ad spend of X amount, or if you need to acquire leads at a certain rate, or you need to have a certain number of actions taking place. That would be your goal. We need to find your baseline by looking at 3 months of data. And I say 90 days because that'll give you a good enough chunk. If you have a website where you have fewer people coming monthly, let's say under 1,000 visitors a month, you may actually want to look at a longer time frame. The more data that you have, the smarter actions or decisions we can take in our marketing. So looking at the overall goal completions, we'll want to look at benchmarking the different goals that you have in place and making sure that you have the goals that are actually valuable to you. And one thing I would also mention here before jumping into benchmarking is when you're looking at your website, track everything. If you think, hey, this isn't really important to me right now, and I have a limited number of goals, make it an event. For example, if you have a part of your business that you don't want to spend marketing dollars on right now, but it is important to know about, like a newsletter sign up.
Or recruitment.
Or recruitment, exactly. If it is something that can be tracked, I recommend that you do. It's always better to accumulate data and have it if you need it. The thing about Google Analytics is it is not retroactive. So if you create a goal today, you won't get historic activity information. So now is the time to do it. And also track everything that you can. And if you ever have a question of, is this something that I should track? Make a segment and look at it by using this ad segment. And you can see if there's a lot of volume here, it may be something that you want to start tracking month over month.
Absolutely.
So we just went over goals. We talked about the 4 different types, which were destination, or the URL changes, page duration, so how long a user was on site, even though Google calculates it differently. We talked about page visits and site visitation, and then the last trickier one, events. So now we're ready to go into benchmark performance. Now that we know that our goals were set up correctly and we have data to look at, we want to benchmark 3 months of data before you run a campaign. You should also benchmark data every 3 months. I would recommend every 3 months looking at the performance of campaigns and setting a new goal for yourself. It's a really good time to check in with what is the goal of my overall company, what is my marketing aim, and what do I want out of my campaigns. And so creating these benchmark documents will help you figure out where are you and is my goal reasonable, which is a really important question to ask. You're always going to be frustrated if the goals that you set for yourself were never going to be achievable. So looking at data will help us do that. So the metrics that we're going to look at are sessions. So how are people coming to the website? What are they doing? Acquisition through channels and traffic sources. Conversions, again, because it's our favorite and most important metric. And e-commerce. So the last section will be dedicated to e-commerce companies. I promise non-e-commerce companies we won't spend too much time there, but there is a lot of valuable information. So we do want to dig into it. Sessions. So again, you can see up here that I have 3 months worth of data. These are metrics that you would want to just take a look at and make a note of. So when you're launching a campaign, what you want to see is more users coming to the website, more new users coming to the website. If you're launching a remarketing campaign, it may not be a big increase of new users, but your returning visitors is going to increase. So depending on what the goal of a campaign that you're going to run is, will determine how the metrics are going to change. But this is where you can get some health checks of your overall website. What's the average session duration? See, I told you, you don't actually need that goal. And bounce rate. So for those of you who don't know what bounce rate is, this is the time that someone comes to the website and leaves. So without going to any other pages, it's Google's metric for how relevant or valuable your website experience was to a user coming in from an outside source. So if they come to your website and stay for a second or 3 seconds and then leave without engaging with anything on the website, like clicking or scrolling, then that's considered a bounce. So the lower this number, the better. I should clarify that. We want it to be as close to 0 as possible. You're never going to have 0, so don't even think about it. That's just not how it's going to work. But 25, for example, that's a healthy number. The other thing to consider with bounce rate is in campaigns like paid search, you're likely going to see a higher bounce rate. And the reason why is you are taking users with your ads to the most relevant landing page. Hopefully, if you have a good landing page, they're getting the information that they need immediately. So it's not going to be someone bouncing around to different web pages once they go to the most relevant landing page, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're going to have a higher conversion rate, which talks about, again, like we said before, we care about conversions and making money. So
yes.
if my bounce rate goes up a little bit, but my conversions also increase, probably not a terrible thing.
Yeah, it probably means you're just getting more users to the website in general.
Yeah.
Traffic channels, beep, beep. This is where you can see how the different platforms are running. So the different channels, organic, paid search, direct, social, RTB, this is where you can see the overall platform performance. And it's nice to just do a quick comparison, a health check to see where you are. As we talked about, paid search, you're going to see a little bit higher bounce rates than organic, so that makes sense. And then direct, these are probably some employees coming through. So one thing to remember is when you're looking at traffic and site performance, one thing that may be important for your business is to consider who's using your website. And we'll jump into this in the audience a little bit, but one thing that you may want to consider is setting up different Google Analytics views or segmentation. So maybe you want to exclude your employees or staff, especially if they use their website to help customers. Maybe you don't want to do that, though, if your employees are helping your customers convert. So it just depends. It's going to be unique based on your business and how users, employees, investors, even you, interact with your website. So how do we make sure that our campaigns are tracked under the right source medium? So this is really important. When you start a campaign, you want to make sure that, you know, not only do you have the right targeting and the right geographic audience and the best images and creative copy, you also want to make sure that you're tagging the traffic correctly so that you have accurate data within Google Analytics. And so the way that we can do this, there are multiple ways in different channels, but one of the best ways that you can have insightful data is UTM parameters, Unique Tag Manager. So what this does is it creates unique hidden fields that populate data based on how a user finds your website, and it is embedded in the URL of your ad. So let's say that we're going to run a Facebook campaign and we're going to do a remarketing campaign and a spring campaign. We would put in the source is Facebook, the medium is TPC because this is a paid Facebook campaign, not an organic Facebook campaign. And then the campaign name could be spring sale or remarketing. Doing this ensures that when we look at the source medium, and this is a little small, so bear with me, when you go to source medium, we can see which campaigns or which channels are driving the most performance for you. And it's important, this view is based off of platform and campaign. So it's not, or source medium, it's not going to be down to the keyword level. However, you can get more granular tracking. The one caveat for that is don't go too granular that you're looking at 5 sessions. You want to have segmented data so that you can make actionable decisions, but you don't want it to be too granular that you don't have enough data to make valuable decisions.
Absolutely.
And then conversions and goals, our favorite thing. So key performance indicators, this is always going to be important to benchmark. For example, if you have a couple different lines of business and maybe you're switching focuses from quarter to quarter, having benchmarks for what each goal completion is, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, will help you make valuable decisions in the overall planning of your marketing. If you know that summers are slow for your business, you may want to decrease your budget, but you may want to also keep in mind that you should be more aggressive coming out of the gate, or not, turn off your marketing all the way so that you're still generating some performance or some website traffic. So this again is going to be unique to your business. One valuable thing though is if you go into Google Analytics on the left-hand side under conversions, which is the flag with the icon, and you go to overview, which is what this view is, you can click down here at source medium, and it'll show you the source mediums that are driving the lion's share of your goal completion. If you don't see a campaign that you're running here, that's an area that you may want to look at optimizations. Maybe the budget isn't correct, because if you're paying for marketing, it should be giving you returns. So making sure that you are paying attention to the campaign's performance, not just in that one channel, but also assisted conversions. How is that campaign affecting the whole path to conversion?
Which, shameless plug, stay tuned on the 21st, because we will go through how to create that comprehensive marketing strategy, which we know a lot of times, gosh, I think in automotive now it's up to 24 or 30 so touch points before somebody buys a car, and so there's a lot of assisted conversions there before they make that final purchasing decision, which they should get credit.
Exactly, and some of these platforms are never going to be last click. They are really going to be influencers. So it's important to look at the whole picture. So
stay tuned.
Yes, y'all better come back. So this is the e-commerce section that I talked about, and I promise we can run through this for the non-e-commerce clients. If anyone has more detailed questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can dig deeper into this section. I just wanted to give a quick overview here that there's some really valuable data that you should be leveraging. So under conversions is a section specific to e-commerce with a lot of data. And so if you look at product performance, if you have a company with a lot of different brands or a lot of different categories of products, for example, if you sell appliances and you have GE, Whirlpool, Frigidaire, Samsung, LG, you probably have different margins on these products. They probably have different price points. Knowing how each brand or category performs is going to be helpful when you're creating campaigns. Maybe you want to focus on the products with the best margins, or you want to give some love to a product that you have a ton of inventory for and you want to push it. So looking at the way that each brand performs, or each product or each category performs at the e-commerce level is going to help you make some of those marketing decisions. And it may be a little bit different than what you anticipated. So it's important to look again at which campaigns here are driving performance for these brands. You may find that one product performs really well on Facebook and another one doesn't. So having these segmentations in Google Analytics can help you make some, I guess, more strategic and advanced marketing decisions. But the rule of thumb, always test.
Yeah.
The next area under the e-commerce that I think is very helpful is the shopping behavior analysis. So for those of you with a checkout process, and it doesn't have to be just revenue specific, if it is a process where they need to fill out information to get qualified, for example, like maybe you're a bank or maybe it's for ticket sales, you can actually set up views to see how users are interacting with your website to find out, do you have a clean checkout process? Is it easy to enter information for shipping, for billing? Where are you losing customers that interact with your website, put products in a shopping cart, and don't end up converting? So this is really important, especially if you're doing a website redesign. I highly encourage you to look at website behavior. Find out where people are coming from and how they're interacting on your website. This can help you make some really strategic decisions for a website redesign before you've already spent the money on it. So it's valuable information. If you don't have e-commerce set up, you can look at that through page drill down under behavior. And then the last one is the product categories. Like we mentioned, different categories and different products are going to perform differently. You can actually drill down to the actual, or you can drill down to the actual product at a granular basis in e-commerce and see what's driving the most revenue or the highest return on investment. This again can help you focus your campaigns. Likely if you're an e-commerce store, you may not have the budget to market every single item that you have on the website. Focus on what's going to drive the most impact for your business. It's usually that 80-20 rule. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your products. Focus 80% of your marketing budget on those 20% of the products. And then 20% can be a catch-all or a remarketing campaign. And then conversion path. So this is not specific to e-commerce, but it is under the conversions tab again. One of the things that we talked about was assisted conversions. And I think this is a really great way to illustrate that. Marketing and online purchases or browsing the web, it isn't a singular event. You're going to see a lot of people doing comparative shopping. The way that you shop online is how other people shop online. And so very infrequently is it going to be one click, one visit, and done. So this kind of shows you what the breakdown is per session. One thing to note is Google Analytics, the window of attribution here is different than other platforms. It's 90-day attribution. So that means that cookies are scrubbed every 90 days, and it's looking at activity within a 3-month window. So what that also means is if I look at data from January, today is July, whoa, just kidding. Today is February 7th. So if I look at last month's data, that means that the data could change tomorrow. It's going to trickle in at actions that were taken 1 month ago, still have data being attributed to them. Google is also going to scrub and validate data, making sure that the data isn't bots or false. So your data may change a little bit. The value here, though, is you want to know how people are using your campaigns to get information about your company, get to the website, and complete valuable actions. And this can show you that it's a lot larger than just having a website. So the different group paths you can drill down even further into, and you're able to segment based on not just conversions, but other aspects, whether that is revenue or cost per acquisition or the completion rate. So this helps you understand the true value of some of the campaigns that may not look like their #1 driver, but it may be the entry point for a lot of users. And then looking at the way that people interact with your site is also going to help you make very strategic remarketing campaigns. So one thing that we've talked about a lot at AdTaxi is time decay and shifting your budget to focus on the most valuable audiences. And what time decay means is you're not willing to spend the same budget on a user who visited your website a month ago compared to a user that visited your site yesterday. So you can kind of see that trend already here. This is the percentage of total conversions and conversion value, which is Google's code for revenue, conversion value. And what you can use this for is figuring out what you want your time decay to look like for retargeting. If you are an e-commerce account, it may be a shorter time frame. If you are a B2B account or you're looking to get leads that need to be qualified and you have a longer sales process, you may want to have a longer retargeting window. And you may want to create time decay audiences broken out based on where they probably are in that buying journey. Are they still comparative shopping, or are they getting proposals? How do you want to talk to people differently with your ads? Can help you, you can determine how you want to talk differently to people with your ads by looking at how frequently or recently they came to your website. So for example, I would probably create an audience for the first 5 days and increase my investment on remarketing to people who have been to my website within 1 week. And then from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, still advertise to them, advertise less frequently, and not spend as much because that audience isn't quite as valuable as the audience in the first 5 days.
Great optimization tips.
Yes. So we're going to go into identifying your audience, but what we just covered was making baseline metrics so that you know the performance of your website before you run campaigns and how do you look at them quarterly. So we looked at sessions, we looked at source and acquisition, creating UTM parameters to make sure that your data is correct. We looked at e-commerce information and also path to conversion for retargeting purposes. So now we'll go into the fun part of who the heck is buying from you. So we'll go into the who, what, where, and how. In Google Analytics on the left under audience, overview is where we saw those sessions and a lot of the website information. It's not actually an overview of your specific audience. Where we're going to dig in is demographics, interests, geo, and behavior. And the reason why we're doing this is we want to confirm some of your suspicions. Many of you are like, I already know who my buyer is, or I already know who my ideal customer is. But is that the person that is interacting with your website? And how do we make our campaigns more targeted? And so this information will help us do that. So under the demographics, so the first one, you can see things such as gender and age. You can add segments again up here. So if you click this, you can look at just your paid search campaigns, or you can look at just weekends. You can segment this audience data however you'd like to see fit. The reason why you want to look at this is, depending on your business, you may not want to invest in certain demographics. If you are a female-only product, chances are you don't want to spend a single dollar on men. No offense, men. And if you are an alcohol company or a company that maybe has age limits, you don't want to spend any money on people who are underage. So this seems pretty generic, but it actually can be leveraged a lot more than users are thinking. The next thing that we want to look at that is a little bit more important is, where are users going? And so this is an actual example, or I guess I should tell you a story. I had a client come to me and they wanted to get more quotes from their website. And when we looked at the Google Analytics, 90% of the traffic was on their jobs and career page. Their website wasn't being leveraged to generate quotes. It was really used for recruiting purposes. So when they redesigned their website, we used that information in mind to minimize the career opportunity page and build out a lot more services for those quotes. And it seems obvious, but the way that you assume people are using your website is based off of your knowledge of your business. It's not based off of actual people interacting. So you'd be surprised at what you can find. So looking at the behavior, the page overview, and the content flow is really important. So here's an example of that. The Solutions Global Network, this was a B2B customer. It was important for us to be sending users to their service-specific pages, and you can see that the career and job opportunity really drove a higher number of entrances and a lot more unique page views. So they didn't realize that that was really their #1 recruiting tool. One of the things that you can do, again, is create a segment, and so this is showing you what that looks like on the back end. You can create a segment going into admin and go to segmentation, or you can just go to that segment up top. This can help you look at external audiences without excluding your internal traffic completely too. And then the fun part is the stocking, where you get to see what everyone is interested in. It gets a little crazy how accurate Google can be. So if you're ever curious to look at what does Google think of me, you can go to Ad Preferences, just type that into Google, and it will show you what Google thinks of you. And for me, they know that I'm a 30-year-old woman who loves candy and dogs. So this information is gathered based off of past historic website visits, your interests, things that you interact with online, all of that data that we don't like giving to Google that Google has, that's used in these affinity category and in-market segmentations. The value of these is that it isn't only in Google Analytics anymore. If you're running a paid search campaign, you can actually apply in-market segmentation. If you're running Facebook campaigns or social campaigns, you have these categories and in-market audience segments available to you. So you should do some research. You want to look at users, but I would also apply a segment for converters. The audience that matters the most are the people that are giving you money, right? So look at what are the people that are your customers interested in, and how can you align your campaigns? And you may be like, okay, but I am a B2B company, why is food and dining important? This can give you ideas of what type of content to put your ads around. So if you're running a display campaign and want to get your name in front of people that are more likely to be interested in your company, it doesn't have to be just industry specific. It's a good way to broaden that scope. The more people that come to your website, the more opportunities you have to convert them. So broader to begin with is better, and then you can hone down. So some of these affinity categories or in-market segments can help you test new things.
Yeah, and even can even look at your creative. Maybe drive some of the imagery that you want to put on your creative. So where can I find these in my GA? What tab?
Yes, sorry. So you will go into Audience, and let me just show you what it looks like on the left. So under Audience is Interests, and this is broken out into an overview where you'll see all 3 of these. You can click into each one. Oops. You can click into each one. So this is an in-market audience example, and it'll show you more specific data per category or in-market segment. And one thing that I should mention is these three look similar, but they're actually different data. And so let's talk about that a little bit. So affinity category means that the audience has an affinity or is interested in these subjects based on things that they've interacted with or websites that they've been to. In-market segment is a lot more valuable. This is data that Google collected that indicated they are in the market to purchase. They are actively looking for or shopping for these items. So another thing to think about is if you are doing, let's say, a quiz or a branding opportunity where you want to promote brand awareness and you maybe want to give out a gift to the prize. This could be something that you use to get some information about your audience. You can also use it for the creative, like you mentioned. So if you see that a lot of let's say you're a restaurant and you have an audience that has an affinity for pets and animals, maybe you want to use a dog or a human with a dog in your ad. So it can give you a lot of different ideas. This isn't going to be as cut and dry. You really need to be more creative. And again, the main point here is to test and expand. And so in-market audiences will drive incremental conversions for you, helps you connect with your customers. So when you're using these to create new ads, it's just going to be a little bit more relevant, a little bit more personalized to the audience as they've declared themselves. And that also helps with remarketing value, aligning your brand and your products with content that they're already interested in. This view is within Google Ads. So you can see it used to be in beta, but it's now released, and we're running this for a lot of different customers. It's not going to be a huge, significant audience, but even if you're shifting $500, $300 a month into an in-market audience, that money is going to be spent on an audience more likely to convert. And so one segment or industry that has seen a lot of success is automotive, so in market for purchasing a car. That time frame is a lot longer. This in-market audience isn't going to be as impactful for e-commerce because that time to purchase or that purchasing path is a lot shorter. It's only going to be a few days. But appliances, housing, real estate, mattresses, cars, yeah, things that take a little bit more research, that's where this in-market audience segmentation layered on top of a campaign is really going to help performance. Yeah. But again, it's not going to be significant amounts of data here either. If you're like most people, we try to unmark what we're interested in and we don't want Google to know what's happening, but it is based on multiple data points. So it's going to be a smaller audience, but that audience has a lot of concrete data that says they're in market for this product. So that's the end. Just to cover what we talked about with the audience, you can look at demographics. You can look at their, and that's age and gender. You can look at geography. Maybe you want to shift where you're focusing geographically of your audience. You can also look at in-market or category affiliation, or affinity, sorry. And you can also look at how the users are interacting with your website. Is your website driving the activity that you want, or is it maybe doing something that you didn't realize? So if you have any additional questions about what we covered or would like an audit, reach out to us. I'm happy to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As Elizabeth mentioned, reach out to us at info@adtaxi.com. We are happy to have you on this webinar, and we will see you next time on February 21st, same time, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we will go through an omni-channel strategy as our buzzword. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.